Here we are with experiential learning. Drop the books and hit the road. Ditch the books and hit the road. Well, books are definitely a great thing. It's definitely how we can learn well. We can get a basic understanding of knowledge through books. Experiential learning takes it to the next level and actually gets you out there and learn by doing. Our natural way of learning is by doing something. If we're reading a book, it helps. It gets a basic theory or knowledge about maybe what other people have done, and then the experiential learning helps you to actually get out there and do what you need to do to accomplish what you want to accomplish. If you take a look at the traditional school system, you've got students sitting at desks in rows. They typically have their textbooks for each subject, and there's a minimal amount of actual experimentation. In science, you may have lab work where you actually create something and you learn about like chemistry and things like that. There is some experiential learning in that. In English, you may have students doing like plays or enacting and actually carrying out the conversations, but this does not really happen or reflect real life experience. So a school system is harder for students to actually get the experiential learning unless they're actually going out on field trips and doing real things that real people do. Just one more example. If I do have my students, which I do normally, I usually try to have them make some sort of vlog or blog, which gets put out there into the real world. So this is a real world experience that I do teach them, and I try to implement the experiential learning with that and have them do this as an ongoing thing. So now let's switch gears and talk about the actual learning loop, the experiential learning loop. So as I mentioned before, experiential learning takes learning theories further and actually helps you to implement what you've learned. So the learning loop here is first starts out with the actual experience. So we're actually doing something to experience whatever the goal is or whatever the activity is. And then it goes over to the reflecting part. So we think about how did that activity actually go, and was it successful or unsuccessful? And then you go over to the thinking and planning part. This could also be, there could be an actual couple extra options in here, like where you actually share what you've done with the outside world, or maybe your friend, or maybe you're just journaling and that's part of the reflective process. So you're thinking and then you're planning. What can I do better next time? What can I do to help improve this? Sometimes we only get a chance to do something one time and we may never do that again. But in the cases where we're going to repeat the process, now you know you have the experience, now you're going to plan a little bit and see, hey, what can I do better? And then the last part is actually following through with what you've planned, what you've learned from, and hopefully the second time around, you can do much better. So the experiential learning is like a loop. You can continue the process over and over and continually improve on what you've already done. Learning by doing is one of the best ways to learn. Now, a thought that just came into my mind here is sometimes we do need a base of knowledge, and that's where books and theories come in very, very handy, because we can read all these books, and then if we apply the experiential learning loop, we can take that knowledge, that theory, and put it into action and actually learn more from the experience of doing it than we have from reading the books. Now, of course, you're not going to read like hundreds of books and not do anything with those books. You're going to read maybe one book and gradually experiment with that book, with that knowledge, with that theory. And you're not going to just read some random book out there that doesn't relate to what your goal is. You need to read a very specific book that fits with your goal, and then go out and experiment with it. One of the things that I really like most about experiential learning is like taking the classroom to the streets. So even if you're not in school, you can take this phrase and apply it. So you're actually going out there and you're experimenting with the things that you want to experiment with, the things that will help you to grow as a person in your professional career, or if you're still going to school, things that will help you to get better at school and getting good grades and maybe going to the university that you want to go to. If you're a teacher, then you're going to be experimenting with different teaching and learning strategies with your students. You're actually going to be doing it. And I think that's one of the things that I love about teaching is the fact that I can always experiment with stuff from class to class, from day to day, to week, to month, to year to year. And I take what I learn from that experiment and improve on what I've been doing. So you can do this in your career as well. You can definitely experiment with things and just don't worry about taking a chance, because if you don't take that chance, then you will never get the chance to change or improve. If you're too afraid of experimenting and then actually failing, then you're not going to make progress. Experiential learning also helps you to hit that zone of proximal development, which is like just doing enough to challenge yourself. It's an activity that you go out and try that's not way too difficult, that's over your head, and then you just easily give up. It's one of those things that challenges you just enough so that you can make that progress and reach your goals that you want to reach. As I was planning this video, I was thinking, well, you know, sometimes experiential learning can be impractical for schools, for students to apply because, well, the way that the traditional system works is they've got a curriculum that they've got to follow, so they've got to get through this many units in this amount of time, which doesn't really allow for true experiential learning because you cannot necessarily repeat the process. It's like a one and done, here's this unit and then you're done and you move on to the next unit. And that's a shame because if you're taking biology, for example, and if the students were allowed to actually go out into the real world and then see firsthand, like for example, you're studying marine biology or something like that, and then you actually go out and snorkel. Now, I've never really heard of this happening at schools, but they're potentially around the world somewhere this might be happening. But yeah, that makes it a lot more difficult for schools to actually carry out these experiential learning experiences. But there are some other examples like reenacting historical events. So rather than like opening up the textbook, you could study about the historical event and then create a recreation of it, which could help the students put themselves in the shoes of the historical figures. Okay, and then there's business, accounting. So if the students were able to go out onto a field trip to a local business and see like the budget and any of the plans that the small business might have, then that would be a good learning experience for them. And then they could do the calculations and all that stuff. Real hands-on experiences that will help them to better understand the topics that they're studying in the classroom, turning that theory into actuality. And then adults can also apply this in their work, like I was giving examples of the teachers earlier, experimenting with new ways of doing things and getting their hands on, turning theories into action. Entrepreneurial ventures, you could, like if you want to experiment with building a business, you could step by step build up a business of your own. Maybe collaborate with other people, getting hands-on experience rather than just reading a bunch of business books and then doing nothing with it. Okay, project collaborate. Culinary, if you want to learn how to cook, you can join a workshop and then the teacher will teach you how to do cooking with hands-on experience. And then language immersion, if you want to go travel abroad, maybe you can apply this to your business or your company and say, hey, we have a partnership with Mexico, for example. Okay, so travel over there, get immersed in the culture and the language, speak with the local people. This is all experiential learning. So starting out, if you want to try experiential learning for yourself, You should set a clear goal. Know exactly what it is that you are trying to accomplish and set that clear goal out in front of you. How will it contribute to your personal growth? And then, of course, you go out and do that thing that you set the goal on, and then you reflect on that process after experiencing it. You can do this by writing in a journal, reflecting, thinking. Writing down helps you to learn as well. You could also write a blog and make it public, or you could even film a YouTube video, which is very helpful because you're actually sharing with other people who can learn from your experiences. And that might actually inspire them to also follow through with an experiential learning loop, especially if they know how to do it. So you go out, do it, you teach them how to do it, and then it becomes a very wonderful circle of sharing. The benefits of sharing your thoughts helps you also to internalize what you've already learned. It helps you to further reflect on what you've learned. That way, if you failed the first time, or maybe you succeeded the first time, and then you want to try again and try to improve upon your progress. This self-reflective loop of sharing helps both sides. So now I'm really curious if any of you have had experiential learning experiences. And if you have, I would love it for you to share your stories in the comments with other people, myself. That way we know, hey, what have you been learning about? What have you been doing? What have you been learning by doing? And then we can follow your story as well and learn from you. So if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, then please do so now, and also share this video with other people so that they can learn about experiential learning and apply this amazing loop in their lives. Thank you so much. See ya.